Okay, I haven't done OBS in a bit. Haven't recorded on OBS in a bit. My programs aren't working. I gotta get a new one. But we've got a chapter to review. We've got some hype to go over, and we get to look right now at the wildness right now in current events. And I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of stock. I had a lot of stock in the idea that Natsu would go E&D this chapter, that the whole trauma from the last chapter would trigger some rage. I didn't get that. You know, like at the beginning of the chapter when I wasn't seeing the shading around the eyes, I was a little upset. It was bumming me out, but not like it didn't ruin the chapter for me, because I knew that if it wasn't going to be that, it had to be something else. It had to be something else going on. And it was like, it was a complete distraction to turn things around. And it makes me like, I figured like the stuff with like Celine being beaten the way she was, because it's like she was beaten in a way that I think made sense for a character where both Igni and Celine are fully aware of how powerful the other are. They're fully aware that the others wants to kill them, and they're fully aware that this is a fight that's going to like easily be decided by like a single opening or a single decision. Igni's was the one where he said, I don't care about conversation rules, I'm just attacking, goes for it. But I think that part of it was he needed to move Celine to a, like out of the way, because like obviously Celine would have had to keep fighting Ignia, and then Dogermag would have to be the one fighting Natsu, where it's like Dogermag is just leaving to go continue whatever their plan is right now with creating this new world. So like I said, it makes sense why it happened. It wasn't like Celine just got attacked. It wasn't like Celine was being reckless. Like, they stopped because of Natsu, and they were like literally in mid-conversation. Like, it's one of those things, like generally a character, when they're explaining their abilities, isn't gonna attack you, whereas Natsu, like, I guess not, it's like it makes sense why Igni is like that, because Natsu is like the same way, does not care about you explaining your powers. If he's mad, he's just gonna go all in, doesn't give any room to breathe for his opponents. So it makes sense for Ignia to be kind of around that same general level of area. But when we look at Celine, I will say that right now, I don't think Celine's dead. Like, she was obviously still breathing and still alive in this chapter. We know that dragons, and with their bodies, can create new organs to make up for ones that are either damaged or lost. And I feel like part of the fact with like Celine being more for humans overall now, she's got her own personal motives in there, but like in the grand scheme of things, she wanted to get rid of the other dragon gods, which would have, besides Celine's own issues that she could, you know, bring to the table. Oh my god, I gotta fix this. I don't know why. Like, I gotta figure out what's wrong with like the whole set, because sometimes it will show it and then everyone, I think it's because it's the video, maybe because it's not I don't know how to make it loop, because it loops on my other software, but it's like this one, I guess it's probably goes through the time and then stops. Let me really quick, let me see if there's I had a background one, and I just want to put it as like the normal red space between time. Maybe I can see if I can put it up there at some point. It'll cover the whole thing. Let me just move this real quick. Just make it a static one. I think that should work, maybe, question mark, we'll see. Either way, let me get back to what I was saying. With like that whole setup, it makes sense to get her out of the way. It's just like, but I think with Celine's position, she can still get a redemption point. Like, she isn't too far gone. Like, she's around like kind of like where Merch Phobia was, were, you know, obviously awful, but still like potentially redeemable. And we know from her motives and stuff, like direct conversation, she's not doing this out of malice or evil. She's pretty much just doing it because it's what she wants to do, and it kind of goes towards whatever plans and stuff she has and wherever she wants to take things. Like, it's like Celine ultimately is selfish more than anything else. It's like not really good or evil. It's just, you know, whatever Celine's mood and whatever she finds entertaining is more of what dictates where things go for her. So like in this case, I guess, you know, helping get rid of the other dragon gods, which again, in a way, benefits humanity and benefits everybody. Whereas when it comes to what she can do that's bad later is obviously something of itself, but like ultimately with the dragon gods otherwise gone, is probably overall beneficial for them. But she kind of had to be moved in order for Dogermag and stuff to happen. Otherwise, we would have had to pretty much move the Celine and Ignia fight, which would have been cool too. But I feel like it's more of setting up stuff with Celine. Like maybe Wendy will be the one to heal Celine and fix her, and there'll be kind of like a sense of gratitude and appreciation, and we'll start to kind of like maybe get more in depth on Celine's character and like backstories and stuff. And we'll have like a moment that might keep her character around but advance her in a different way. Like maybe this will be what unites Diablos and Fairy Tail, and we can see the two groups join up for like the progression of what's happening. And maybe that's why like Dogermag was brought up as in his position to make up for that. Now like switch sides of one of the dragon gods, maybe one becomes an ally, which I think would be really cool, because like Mercephobia could have been like that, but we know with no magic right now, and his weird, because it's like his is really weird because like he's a dragon, so he shouldn't need magic, but he's also like his human form isn't how he's supposed to look. He's kind of in that form stuck, and like there's some really weird variables in there that I'm hoping we end up actually get addressed soon, because there's a lot of stuff in there that either doesn't make sense or we just don't know exactly certain things that resulted in that obviously made him in that position where he's stuck in his human form for some reason. Because even if you say like took all his magic, let's see, look right now it's got the freaking, it doesn't have the picture I want. Let me just move this and see if it if I just can get the background. There we go. It's not the same, it's not animated, but it's like at least it's the red space between time until I get my stuff fixed. But with that, Celine I think is in a spot where we could get maybe some form of redemption, some form of direction around that. But for now we got Dogermag, and where Dogermag is going to be doing things. In Dogermag this chapter, first off, I will say I figured there could be something with Dogermag, but like I didn't expect him just to be like, I'm alive, bitch, and just show up and just be ready to go crazy and just be a menace. I figured there would be something further with that, like maybe some form of resurrected state, like a zombie or a skeleton or something. I didn't expect him just to literally be up and ready to throw hands and go crazy, you know, at this soon within like the span of time that he, you know, we got to like Ignis showing up and things moving at the speed now that they are. Because it's not like randomly like we're getting just like blitzed through the arc. Like, well, this seems to be more of, oh yeah, it was kind of the point with Ignia more showing up was to get to where we were going to have everybody arrive and move towards this actual serious point of aggression, because the Dragon Eaters and the Fairy Tail members were not at a point where they were at an aggressive state to where they would be murdering each other or something, because it ultimately was a game. Kiria is different because of Kiria's personality, but for the most part, they didn't, like, nobody seemed to really want to murder each other. It was more of just fighting each other. Kieran made some jokes, but I think ultimately for Kieran, those were jokes. So with Dogermag, we now have a serious situation because he just straight wants to eat the humans. He's not having it. I will say though, like, I was upset, like, again, not to like a point where it like ruined the chat for me. I was like, man, no E&D stuff, damn, that's rough. And then we like start seeing like the, you know, the general things, like why Natsu would be mad about what just happened didn't have anything to do with Celine in specifics, because obviously he's got beef with Celine. I figured it would be more of like just the trauma, thinking back with Acting Logan Ignio, that it would kind of trigger and then just kind of not killing, sorry, as like I don't think Celine is dead, because it's like we don't see her dead, she's still kind of like hanging on. And by the end of the chapter, not by the end of the chapter, from what we were seeing, like there was no real focus on her. So I think it's more of one of those parts where it's like, oh, they're hurt, you know, but they're gonna be off on the side. But by the time it's like we get through certain events, like she's gonna probably be healed and be fine, I would assume. Like my biggest thing will be if Celine does somehow die. I think that would be a bit of a problem, because like I feel like that would be throwing away a lot of character potential and stuff for her. It'd be really weird to do that. But here we have like Ignia like talking to Natsu, like, why do you care? Like, you know, this should be beneficial to you. That's one less dragon god for you to really deal with. And Natsu thinking, you know, it doesn't really matter who beats you or Celine, but killing a comrade like that makes me sick. And we have like the Ignia thing of like, I mean, you know, I think generally like anybody could have seen them, like they aren't allies, like they don't like each other. And we get that from Ignia. He's just like, she is not my ally. Like we are in no way allies whatsoever. My only ally would actually be Dogermag. And that's one of the things that I've loved. I've actually really liked since the introduction of that idea that Ignia, Like Igneous whole thing, when you look at him differently from the other Dragon Gods, he's like just this loose cannon. He's completely like his own man. He doesn't seem to ultimately really side against the humans or for them. It's more of just like they get in the way, he's gonna do something. They stay out of his way and stay out of whatever he wants to do, and they're probably gonna be fine. But with Dogermag's his one buddy, and you have like him say like, if I ever had a comrade, it would actually be Dogermag and only Dogermag. And then you have like a voice like, oh, we're comrades, is that it, is that a guy? And then you have Suzaku and Api are like confused where the voices come on from, but Celine ends up recognizing it. And then like we have stuff like the labyrinth is shaking and falling apart. We have Kieran show up for Lax's skin, which is really cool. I thought that was a really neat thing to put in the chapter, but it's like we would have to like get to this before we get to the full fight with Dogermag. Maybe we'll get to like Natsu and his like Natsu versus Dogermag humanoid form, get partway into that, maybe start pairing into certain other events. Maybe we could finally figure out what's going on with Scullion and Mad Bull, especially with the labyrinth collapsing. We need to see where things kind of go from with that, like what's going to happen to certain characters. Are they going to be left behind to die? Are they going to be up? Are they going to be saved? What's going to go on with that? But we have the Kieran and Laxus group up, which is pretty cool. Like the encounter goes about what you would expect of them, kind of just having this kind of fierce-eyed glare about like who's gonna win. And then we get back to what I really want to talk about. You have, first off, Dogermag is like, you haven't come to my grave in 100 years and we're comrades, we're still friends, is that it? Like he seems a little annoyed, like it's just like a buddy back and forth like that. I think was something that really does a lot for Igneous character, because it shows, like, again, it shows a side that I don't think otherwise we would ever get to see of him, of something, again, playful to somebody he sees as an ally, as a buddy, where it's like literally like anybody else he wouldn't really care. It's just part of like his whole overall scheme. But then here comes up Dogermag. First off, I love his design. Like he looks like the rock dragon from the Grand Magic games if he had a Chad brother. Like that's like the Grand Magic game ones is like the goofy brother who everyone, people like him, he's a cool dude, but it's like you see his brother and you're like, holy shit, like this guy is probably like 6'9" and jacked, like just an absolute meat tank, like if you were to compare. And then you see like the younger brother, he's like 5'8" and kind of regular, maybe a little bulky, but it's like you just see this absolute monster that probably took all his food when he was a kid. And that's just how Dogermag is. Dogermag is built big. He's just like this massive set of legs. He's got a like just straight thick boy neck. His whole chest and his whole, like, pretty much everything about his body is just bulking. He is just the tank dragon apparently. Like Alderaan was overall big, and like he had a pretty big kind of scale, but Dogermag just seems, he just built heavy, which is cool. And I really like how rocks are just floating around him. I think that's just a really cool, neat little touch. And granted, we have stuff like Ichnia just having flames on him, and like Mercephobia having water all around him. But I think this is just one of those cool touches that do give him that nice little tone of benefit. And then he comes up and he's like, hey there, brother, which I liked. I like him calling Ignia his brother. I thought that was just really cool for his character. It gives him, again, that they're not human, but it gives him, as that human side to him, that humanity, that humanizing rather. It grounds him and gives him more of a character side that, again, you wouldn't see with anybody else. Anybody else seems like he would either eat or not really have much of the time for. But it's like if Ignia, the only way that I think could have been better portrayed is if before Ignia left, he also turned in his human form and they fist bumped each other. They just gave each other knucks and they flew out of there for, and then Dogermag can stay and fight. But Suzaku is a little bit kind of confused because, obviously we went into this thinking that Dogermag was dead. And they have the whole thing, he's like, Ignia, it's finally at the ready. And he's like, sweet, we got this. So we're going to start the plan. We're going to get this promise we've got going, and we're going to pretty much just get everything going. But Dogermag's just like, you go ahead, you do that, which is cool because now Dogermag is going to, Ignia is going to go off and I would assume start prepping up whatever plan he has of bringing back dragons or creating new dragons. And he's like, I haven't woke up in 100 years. I want to stretch my body. And it looks like tons of humans for me to eat around here, like within the labyrinth, which makes sense for him to know. Like it was pretty much an extension of his body, so like knowing where everybody is and knowing how many people in there would make a lot of sense. But Ignia says like one thing that I'm glad that we got like full out confirmation. He's like, do what you like, but don't kill Natsu. Do not kill Natsu. I'm saving him for myself. I want to show him, like he says, like I want to show him the world we're gonna create. And then like Ignia, like it's funny because Ignia, like he must have talked to Dogermag. It's not just they were friends. Like he's clearly shared personal information. He's like, oh, that's the human Ignia raised, interesting. And he's like, yeah, I get it. No wonder you said that. You just go do you. I won't kill him. And Ignia just kind of does anything. He's like, listen, I'm serious though. Do not kill Natsu. Just do not do it. So I'm guessing like in the past, their relationship, there must have been times where it's like he's like, all right, don't do this, but like Doger might be like, okay, and then does it anyway. Just kind of like has that similar kind of like brute, loose cannon mentality. Probably not to the same degree as Ignia, but still at a point where he's just a little bit too reckless. And he's like, well, can I beat him up then? He's like, yeah, dude, just don't kill him. You're good. I want Natsu to see what we're gonna do. And then he's like, you know, because he tells him to go along, he's just like, you got it, brother, sweet. And then Ignia flies off. Natsu's like trying to go after him, but it's confronted by Dogermag, who's like, listen, you can chase him, or you can stay here, because your options are, if you chase him, I'm gonna eat all the humans here, and I would assume that you're gonna regret that and be like, man, I probably should have stayed there and dealt with him. Maybe my friends would have stood a chance. Natsu obviously is mad because, you know, why would he not be upset over that? That's like one of the most go-to ways of pissing off Natsu, is to give him some form of upset towards his friends. Like, it, not just in general of like, you know, just like, yeah, I don't like your friends. It's like, yeah, I'm going to murder and eat them. So it's like, yeah, I assume he's going to be pretty cross about that. He's probably not going to take too kindly to that. I feel like most people wouldn't, but we know that's a direct upset for Natsu. But like when Natsu gets upset, he's like, Dogermag starts laughing. He's like, you're like an open book. Like, listen, I got you. Like, let's just fight. Come on, man. You know, it's like the results though, like it's gonna come out to be like that. I don't think you can beat me. And that's gonna be a bit of a weird spot, because like one thing we knew is like Dogermag was the weakest of the dragon gods. So as far as we know, he's the bar. He's the bar for the dragon gods, because we know that the dragon form is really obviously where all their power is. And he's like, I don't think you can beat me. I think Natsu's fine against human form Dogermag. There's probably going to be variables that make it harder for him. But I think like if you took it seriously, similar to Suzaku beating Celine, you could have Natsu go Dragon Force, you know, Purgatory slashing Dragon Force, similar to with Alderaan, beat him. But it's like once he goes Dragon form, that's a different story. Completely different story. I did like when Dogermag starts laughing at him. I thought that was pretty funny, because he's just like a little trollish. And he ends up shrinking, and there's like a weird thing. He's like, but I know how strong you are. And it's like, I wonder what exactly he meant by that, like why he would say strong in like quotes and stuff. It's like, I used Eleftheria's heart pretty much to gather intel for the past 100 years. So like he must know that he's END. I feel like he must know stuff about his Etheria side, because that otherwise, like, why would he say like, you know, I know how strong you are and I've been gathering all this intel. And Eleftheria's heart would just give him the ability to find out the level of information of pretty much anything he wanted. And like, well, maybe I can't use my real power after waking up, which is going to be weird. I'm hoping Dogermag will get to a point where he can use his full power. But like for now, I don't mind getting like a good skirmish match. Like as long as he looks good, I'll be fine. I'm hoping he has kind of like a Broly style of fighting, where he's going to be like grabbing Natsu by like the face and slamming him directly on the ground, where that size gap is just going to be, you know, a big factor in how he's going to be fighting. Less punches and more slams and grabs. I think that'd be sick. But it's like, you actually, you actually might be a good fight. He's like, come on, Natsu, let's do it. You know, I'm Dogermag, the Earth Dragon God. Let's go. I'm guessing the next chapter will be called the Earth Dragon God, because we keep having all these ones where it's like the Dragon God for what it is. Like, obviously we got for Celine and Celine's debut, you know, the Moon Dragon God. And in this case, it wasn't the same, as this chapter is called like Rise of the Earth, or like the Earth Rises. Let me see what, yeah, the Earth's Awakening by like the fan translations. But he ends up going into his human form. Really sick. I love the design. The dreads look really cool. Like the headband looks sick. I really like the cool the long pants with like the tassel on the side, and he's got like these bands on his biceps with these cool kind of wrist guards. No shirt, but he's got like the cool scar with like these stone tattoos that look kind of like scales that are also on his face, and he's got a beard. Like he just looks badass. I really like his design. And he's just got a whole intimidation thing going on with it. And he's just like, you know, I'm the Labyrinth's creator, I'm the Labyrinth. And so that's a weird one to me, because it's like, how is he planning on like going about that? Like, what's the point of like really talking about the labyrinth, if the labyrinth like doesn't have anything to do with his power, like he should just be using outright dragon stuff, unless there's going to be more of the labyrinth than we know about. Like, what if he's got monsters or other dragons there? Like, what if he's got just secrets down there he can now utilize and make some form of bigger threat for? Because he's like, that has to be something really like relevant to his powers, I would assume, and like how he fights. Like, otherwise why would he talk about being the labyrinth's creator? Because if the labyrinth was just a labyrinth that he was using while he was setting up his plans, well, then what's the hype about like bringing up that he's the labyrinth itself and he's the creator of the labyrinth? That would just be like, why did you bring that up, guy? Like, there was no reason for you to do that. And then at the very end of the chapter, we actually see Eleftheria alive, and oh my god, like, the rest of the chapter was so hype, but man, I was so relieved to see this dude still breathing, still alive. I did not want him to die yet. There's obvious plot related stuff with obviously the 100 Years quest, the main cast getting their wish, but it's like, this dude, which is still sus, by the way, like granting, like saying I'll grant you what you wish, that's such a broad claim that just seems too good to be true. I feel like that is a very, very suspicious thing still for him, and I got my eye still on Eleftheria. He's not out of the woods on my sus radar yet, but he's like saying how Dogermag uses heart pretty much to, like he said, store his own life force, which makes me think, is like, does that mean that because Ignia destroyed it, that life force went back to him? I would assume, because I feel like that just makes sense. If his life force is in there, then destroying the heart would mean that it would then go back. And he's like, why did he create the labyrinth? What are you trying to do? And that's part of the mystery, obviously, that like Dogermag and Ignia's like larger scale plans. But I am very happy that Eleftheria is alive. I really wanted to make sure that Eleftheria made it out of this arc, or at least like I want him at least to fight once. I want to see what a law dragon can do, because like he has like a lot of like dangerous stuff about his power when it comes to like lore, like they can just find stuff out. But it's also like from a battle standpoint, it'd be really cool to see him just use his power, learn some crazy like high level spell and be able to dispense it. Like, he could essentially be a classical wizard style version of a dragon. And especially with his level of magical power as a dragon and stuff, he should be able just to throw crazy stuff down and be relatively fine afterwards. So this chapter is absolutely hype. Like I said, I went into this for the first chunk a little bit disappointed, mainly because I was hyped for the idea of maybe E&D would come back and we'd see some E&D stuff, and like, I had my fingers crossed on that. But man, what we got was, I think, just as hype, just maybe not just as hype, because I mean, like, the E&D stuff's crazy, but seeing stuff like Dogermag pop out of the ground, we get his human and dragon form, and they look great. Like, that's the stuff like that is just such a big plus to me. Like, actually seeing him in his full scale in both forms in the same chapter was great. That made me super happy. Also, like, Ignia doing that too, like, reminded me I guess, like, so you could count, well, no, because we got Celine's human form like chunks earlier in chapter 50, so it's not entirely the same. But like, we got Ignia in his human and dragon form really in full view the same chapter, so it makes sense why Dogermag, his buddy, would do the same thing. But his fight with Natsu up and coming, I got my fingers crossed. I mean, Suzaku's there, so it's not like Natsu is in too much trouble until Dogermag goes into his dragon form. That's obviously the big scare, and I think they're gonna need more people to fight him. Maybe pretty much anybody from the labyrinth could come out and join in the fight. I think that'd be something that'd be really, obviously, like, turn the tides of what they're doing, and have that big of a battle to eventually overtake Dogermag would be really cool. And from there, I will say that like, I assume Natsu can take human form Dogermag. The dragon form is obviously like a huge extra factor, but with this, will Dogermag make it out of the arc? I think that's going to be the big thing. I kind of don't think he will. I won't be surprised if Dogermag dies, but I'm kind of hoping he'll make it out. Either way, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter, because like, I really liked it. I thought this was super cool, super hype. I loved getting Dogermag's dragon and human form designs. He looks cool, he's funny. It gave, again, more of a view of that side to Ignia, where he had a friend, where he had like actually somebody he could count on, similar to Dogermag, and now Dogermag is calling him brother. Like, that's That's just a nice touch. I like that to both of their characters because it just gives them a little bit extra a spice, because generally a lot of the big bads don't have friends or any like allies. It's more just minions. So seeing somebody they actually can rely on and count on and they would consider a friend is nice from an antagonist and villain standpoint. So I'm pretty cool about that. Anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video for the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. When that appreciate subscribe, then I thank you all for listening. Bye.